will ETs come down and save us, right? Is there going to be a solar flash that like puts us back to the Stone Ages? And there's like 1,000 different opinions on it, and there's so many opinions that it's almost confusing to even have an opinion. And I think what we talked about before doing this was the idea of manipulation. Is there somebody like MK Ultra? You've heard of these secret programs. Are they just dirtying the discussion to the point where it's non-relevant, where you just can't really decide, where you become unimpassioned, or you don't want to go out and change anything because you don't even know what this is? And I think there's so much fear in this community that if there is some kind of spiritual awakening, is it good? Right? Is it bad?
Right.
Is it the devil? Is it gonna get you?
Right.
And then like you don't want to do the wrong thing, right? So it can get very scary. But from my experience, and I know from your guys' experience, it's more about love, right? And so it would be really fun to discuss this. And this came up because of a couple articles that were written recently, that were very fear-based about spirituality, about the awakening.
Yeah.
And I think we all just wanted to get together and talk about this. So, if you'd like, maybe you guys can introduce yourselves.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Well, I'm Seth Dietland, and 20 years ago, I had a spiritual awakening where I began to communicate with the angels. And the first thing they started talking about was a sort of an ascension, or some sort of movement into a way different scenario, heaven on earth. Right away, they were talking about drastic changes to this world, meaning like no government, no money in its current form, and the ability to heal ourselves without the medical industry. And this is 20 years ago. So since then, I've been downloading a lot about what this change is directly from them, more from them than from other sources.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Awesome. My name is Isaac Mars. I am a theoretical physicist and spiritual guide. During my awakening, which happened at the beginning of last year in 2021, I ended up discovering theories on time and existence and how we exist in this reality. My theories led me to discovering plausible explanations for how dark matter interacts with the universe, how dark energy works, and what the fundamental forces behind gravity really are. And in my awakening, I started to realize all these fundamental truths that we see in spirituality in this so-called New Age movement. And I finally realized that we've all kind of been had up until that point. And in following my intuition and my inner guidance, I've come across these very, very obvious in some ways patterns of psychological manipulation in the world. And that goes back all the way to the 50s and 60s when the CIA started the MK Ultra program. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be bringing the truth to the forefront and going over what perspectives are valuable and beneficial and what can actually disempower us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And, just to add a little bit about myself, besides creating the website and all this, I did have my awakening about 2.5 years ago. And very similar to you, Seth, it went from an experience that I had to a spiritual awakening, to very quickly my guides and angels. And the first thing that they told me, because I asked, why is this happening to me, is that the world was about to change dramatically. They told me a few years from now that people would be locked inside their houses for a couple of years, and then they would start to have an awakening. And this was before coronavirus. I had no idea what they were talking about. And they said that this spiritual awakening would lead to a lot of unrest, but it would quickly lead to a totally different way of living, a totally different world, where basically we would start to remember who we were, why we were here, and sort of what's the purpose of the whole point of existing, and that was something that has been kept lock and key for not just MK Ultra in the last 100 years, but the thousands of years. It's really a discovery of our history and who we really are as a species.
Cleaning out of the Alexandria libraries.
Right.
All that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so the first thing I sort of want to, maybe we can discuss, is the idea of the truth being hidden. So when I hear the New Age movement, right, I think that I think of the 70s and the 60s and like, like all these sort of foo-foo people, as they're called, doing a lot of crazy things. And before I had my awakening, I also was like, yeah, that's just sort of wacky, a lot of the stuff that I'm hearing,
I think we're all guilty of that.
Yeah, wacky doodle do, right?
This is some wacky stuff. And, that was always my perception. It wasn't until I personally experienced something I was like, whoa, there's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go back throughout history, this isn't something that, in my particular opinion, is MK Ultra or the New Age movements where you have, maybe the Christians are saying that's the devil, and these people are saying it's just fake, and these people are just saying, oh, those are just druggies.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to the Roman times where it was illegal to look at the stars, purge of death.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was. Even being a vegetarian or a vegan was something that they would pour lead down your throat for. Jeez. Like there was all these things throughout time where if you sort of went off script, like Galileo or something, it was a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
So the control of truth, the control of information, and really the control of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Because what is so important is the ability to just think, to be sovereign in your own thought. Mm-hmm. The world tells us this story, and we have to believe it. And when we sidestep the story, then things happen, like censorship,
mm-hmm.
right? And so when you think about New Age and this idea of spirituality, what is the biggest thing that you see that has been censored throughout time? Like, what's the main point that you think has been censored? So I would like to just go to the heart of it, and then we can go into the details.
Raising consciousness, awareness,
mm-hmm.
being aware, accessing your deep inner knowing, your highest inner knowing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And on top of that, working in tandem with that, I think it is the biggest secret that has been hidden from all of us is the illusion of separation. The idea that I exist as only me, and the end of me is at the border of my skin, and everything outside of me is some sort of foreign alien world in which I've interjected myself and am on some sort of probationary life period. Mm. And what we realize when we start to question that illusion is that the self and the other are completely inseparable. Mm-hmm. I can't have an experience if there isn't a world around me to experience. And the world can't be experienced unless there is a me to experience it. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the biggest illusion that has been pulled over our eyes in terms of psychological control or manipulation. Because if I think that, I'm not connected to someone else, then I'm more liable to act out of selfishness. I'm more liable to watch my own ass, per se, rather than cover somebody else's.
Fair enough. Yeah. I can add my little piece here. From what I've seen, it really seems like power. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, this is, in my mind, it's all about power. The reality is like, and I agree with you, the biggest secret has been that we're incredibly powerful because we are one with everything. Mm-hmm. There really is no separation. The God, the all that is, whatever you want to call it, if you logically think about it, all of this came from something, and we are part of that something. We probably are that something. Mm-hmm. And, we're starting to see that now with technology and virtual reality and AI and all this stuff. We're starting to have the words to describe reality in a way that is very complex. And what you see from, the prophets and the spiritual teachers, going back to Buddha and all these different people, was the idea that we're way more than who we think we are. There was the idea of reincarnation, that we don't end. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of these esoteric ideas are very powerful. And we're in a world that by default is in many ways disempowering. It is here to make control structures so that, the few can control the many for production of, for labor, for production of goods, for control of society, for organized society to exist. The pyramid structure has been in place long before I was born. And what you see in spirituality, this idea of, well, I'm everything that there is a radical idea. It breaks the pyramid.
Completely breaks the pyramid, yeah.
And I think that's the core of the scariness of it all. Because there's a scariness of, well, the world works a certain way. If everyone wakes up, who's going to serve me my McDonald's?
Right.
Do they really want to go to work? Am I going to be able to get a burrito ever again in my life? Like, is society going to break down?
Yeah.
Maybe. That's, I think, a great question, right?
I think a good tagline for that in this new idea, this heaven on earth that we're talking about, would be, instead of there's an app for that, there's a person for that.
There's a person for that.
You want to go get a pizza? There's a person for that. Because the universe is infinitely intelligent.
There's somebody who loves pizzas, you're right.
Right.
Loves serving them. So to sort of take the conversation forward, there's a lot of talking points that we're seeing that are being sort of lots of different disinformation, lots of different opinions. They're sort of diluting these to the point where you don't really know the truth or not. And not that we are the owners of the truth, but maybe it'd be cool to sort of go through and give our opinions on it. And so what we have here is, just for the audience, is we have a little list here of talking points that we got from articles that were very much calling into new age stuff as sort of bullshit in a sense, right? And that,
well, specifically that it's a psyop.
That it's a psyop,
yeah.
That the governments are just using this to pacify us, and why there may and may not be truth to that. It seems like some of the biggest points here are, ones that are just repeated over and over that are, on the face of it, could be very empowering, but after they sort of go through these psyop machines, they're very confusing. So I thought it'd be fun to just sort of pick through them, and I want to pick the biggest one first, which is all you need is love. Love is always the answer. And so the premise of this is, love is everything, and love is all you really need. And then the, sort of the disinformation view or the negative view is like, well, you can't take love to the bank. You can't pay your mortgage with it. What about divorce and all the other bad relationship problems? Is love really all that there is? I think I'm pretty sure I need a sandwich right now.
Right.
So,
or even protection. We must defend ourselves. We must kill others if necessary to defend ourselves.
Out of love, right? which is a funny concept.
And I think the other debunking quality is that if it was a psyop to pacify us to believe that there is only love, then while the masses are indulging and participating in that, those that want to stay at the top of the pyramid can deceive and manipulate everyone else in there because they're too busy high on the love, or basically misdirecting their awareness into a less than powerful place, while the power takes more power. There's an idea that may be the reason why that was put out there as a psyop.
Okay.
And what's interesting though is that energy is love. So love isn't just that feeling from a card. It's actually life force energy.
It's the essence of life.
Yeah.
So from your point of view, from your experience as a channel, you've been getting messages for angels for quite some time now. When they say love is the answer, what does that mean?
Well, the way that they've explained it to me is that that it is a unified field that some people call the quantum field, and so the Creator, God, whatever, is entirely this unending field of particles that is love. And so when the angels talk about love as something that we're aware of, so when we're experiencing love, we're only aware of its presence. And so love doesn't just sort of come in and out, it's always around us. But what happens is that our awareness moves into being aware of its presence or not aware of its presence. And that's the energy that moves through us and creates all things. So as it not only moves through us, it moves through the entire quantum field and creates the trees or the squirrels and everything else. And then, of course, that's how we create our own reality and the form of anything that we have, like our house or anything that we have in there. It's through passion and love. And so it's the essence of everything. And so it's the core building block is the way that the angels refer to it.
Okay. And Isaac, what do you think about this?
I think another thing to address in terms of love is the argument that love can hurt us. Love can be painful against us, as in some sort of victim mentality. What I truly think that type of love would be conditional love. That is love. It's not healthy. It's fear-based. It's, I will love you as long as you fit into this box. I will love you as long as you only talk to me. And a lot of people have that idea of love, and honestly, they don't know really what they're doing or why they have that. But what it comes from is from this world, from the society, from Hollywood, from the movies we watch, the TV shows, to the music we listen to. It all tells this story of how this less than spiritual, less than genuine love is supposed to look like. And I think that's got a lot of people chasing this carrot. And so I think one of the biggest things to know about love is that, I mean, what is it? What is love? What is real, genuine, unconditional love? And to me, that is everything positive about this beautiful experience we call life.
Right.
It is tapping into the mentality of viewing everything as it is, rather than how your perceptions or the way that you were raised, what we call in the spiritual community, the programming that we have, what it is trying to convince us to think about it, rather just than doing that, just letting things be as they are and realizing that it's a freaking miracle for us to be here.
Right.
And the question is, when we're talking about love and how omnipotent it is, where does this surge of its opposite come from? Because especially in the last couple of years, we've seen this sort of surge of fear, this surge of an attempt to put people into this sort of fear. And we've seen a surge of people perhaps buying into it or feeling that they need to embrace it as some sort of survival mechanism, right? So almost even turning off or blocking the heart where they get to where that gets to come through them and all of that. And it's not to blame it on another person other than us, but we're watching fear sort of make this interesting surge.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been sort of downloading is this idea of a time of separation where people are almost like there's an energy to choose fear versus love. And when I look at what is love, love is everything. Love is just the only thing that there is. It, like you very much said, it is the essence of creation. That's what makes all this possible. It's God's desire to love itself, to know itself, to experience itself. Is why we're all here. And I use the word God, but you can exchange that for, whatever source of whatever it is.
Hooba juba wooba, whatever
there
word
is
you
this
want.
one thing, consciousness, that dreamed us all up, and we are the dreamer, and we awaken from the dream. And so when I see, love is all you need, love is all the answer, I actually do believe that. Now the story that we've been told throughout time is very much love is a piece of the answer. Love is very conditional. You love your child if they do the right thing and they go to the right school and they make you proud. You love yourself if you're good enough and you make enough money and you're good looking. And oh my God, the things you need to do to love yourself are tremendous.
The number of Instagram likes.
Yeah, the Instagram likes, the 3 people watching this right now.
Right.
Is it enough? That's the great question. And so there's all this conditional love. And when I see that love at the core of it, I see the reality that there's really only one of us, and that's the Creator. And then all of this are these mirrors for us to experience ourselves, to experience what we really are. And it's the not knowing that makes it a little bit fun, I think, and a little dangerous. And, it gives us this experience, but it's to find love for ourselves. And I think we live in a world that very much says you're not good enough unless you do this, which keeps that pyramid alive. Because again, if it's like, hey, it's cool, you can be you and I can be me, and we're the same person at the end of the day. I don't dislove my hand, even it's a part of my body.
Right. And not to nitpick on the way that you said that, but I would say even a step further, instead of finding love, remembering that we are love.
That's what we are. Yes.
Right. And really where we get this duality between love and fear, we can realize that the only place that fear exists is in the mind.
Right.
I think this bad thing's going to happen to me. because I saw it happen to other people. I think that, in my future, like you said, I may not be good enough, but the future isn't here yet. All we have is this moment. And so I think that when we recognize that fear only exists in the mind, then logically speaking, that would mean that everything else is love.
Right.
So it's perfectly coinciding with what you said.
Right, or the fear that someone else says that something bad is going to happen to you,
Right.
and you accept that. And it's interesting because the actual fear that does exist in the mind does actually have a purpose, because it as a contrast to love, we get to experience or get to know exactly what it is, because it's so dynamic. And as a result of experiencing fear, we gain a better understanding of in that sense. And the other thing is that, especially when you're reading certain articles that want to sort of deceive you, whether it's you're watching the news or whatever, it's easy to pay attention to how you feel, because we know the signature of love and we know the signature of fear by how we feel. And when we're around someone that's angry or that lives in fear, we can walk in the room, they won't say anything, but all of a sudden it's a very recognizable signature. We could describe it as cold, or it causes tension in our body.
Right.
Whereas when we're in the presence of someone who has access to love or is expressing themselves from love, we're in the room with them, they don't have to say anything, and we just sort of expand and open up naturally. So it has a very recognizable energy signature. And I know that when we recognize that we become empathic or aware of energy, I've always wondered why they play the news at the gym, because it's one of those places. I try to find the equipment that's nowhere near it, because the higher your awareness goes, or the higher you expand, the more you actually see this. You doesn't even have to have the volume on. And it's like this immediate repulsion. And then at lower levels of awareness, it doesn't really register, but like a low level hum in that sense. And so it does have a recognizable energy signature, but also when you're consuming information as well, it's how you get to tell whether the information is coming from power or whether it's coming from antimatter in that sense.
That's great. I think this leads to our next question sort of here. So we want to be loved. Everyone wants to be loved, but then we experience pain, right? We get a breakup, we have something happen, and we're like, I didn't create this. And so here comes the next question. There's all these good things and bad things happening in the world, and one of the spiritual things that we hear about that's often debated is that you create your own reality. You create absolutely everything, right? And so that's sort of a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people, and for good reason in many ways. Like, there are people born with disabilities. There's people who born and then die. Did they really create that for themselves? There's all the things that happen in our life that seem like things are going good, and then we get blindsided.
Right, or even childhood trauma experienced at a very young age.
All kinds. The negative we know. There's everywhere, and that's, the human mind focuses on that. If there's a tiger in the jungle, that's all we're talking about. But there might be, a fence between us, the tiger, and $1 million right next to us. We wouldn't see it. We'd just be worried about the tiger.
Right.
So where we are right now is this idea, and this is a tough one. We create our own reality. And I would say that the disinformation or the counter arguments to this is, no, you don't. You don't create your reality. What you do is mostly insignificant, and life is just happening to you. Now, I think that maybe all of us might have a different opinion, but it'd be really good to hit that head on. I don't know who wants to take that first.
The first thing when the angels first came to me, that woo-woo pie in the sky stuff, it just doesn't register with me. I have to have some sort of logical or tangible relationship with it. And even though the spiritual world and the logical world has a dividing line, they're supposed to work together if we're in this world. So everything that I gained or garnered from the angels, it had to test in this world for me. It had to have an actual tangible result. So when you're talking about like someone who wants to teach the law of attraction, which is great. That's kind of a concept, but it has to actually work in order to be believable in that sense. So, right? So there we go. So I have had experiences where I have been aware that by keeping a high vibration, I find myself exempt from a negative outcome. I've actually had that happen and seen that. I've actually had experiences where something that I was creating or manifesting by actually shifting into a different feeling caused it to be where it was blocked before. So I've had that. I've also had the experiences where I felt that no matter what I do the right way, it seems to go its own direction as well.
You've had that, yes.
Yes, so we have those as well. And I think that's very legitimate. And of course, when you watch the teachers who teach on this kind of thing, they only present the fact that this is sort of like an absolute or a law, right? And I've experienced interacting with a lot of people who are consuming this sort of information, and when they're not having the same results with it, they feel inadequate, they feel frustrated, defeated, and all of these kinds of things.
So it produces a negative effect
Produces
as well.
a negative effect as well.
I did the right thing, yet what I wanted
Yeah.
didn't happen.
No matter what, I keep doing the right thing. And I have seen very clear instances where things have happened to other people that I know or myself from something that was inside energetically. You know, I had an experience where I was watching a dog for someone, and they had left the news on, and I hate the news because of the energy, right? It just registers like this. But when they were coming back to the dog, I thought that I would put the news back on because that's what they expected. And then I consumed it just on my way out the door, but it was so much and so heavy. And I ended up picking up a rock in my windshield that ended up cracking it. And right away I knew it was from consuming that information, that happened, that it was an energetic response.
So you see the correlation in sort of that state of energy you're in and the quality of events that happen in your life, more or less.
I do see a correlation, and I see more and more correlation, but I also actually have experiences and witness experiences that seem to defy that as well. Yeah.
And Isaac, what about you?
Well, so for me personally, I have a logical explanation for how we create our reality.
Okay.
And the way that I would explain that is that as we have begun to understand in the spiritual community, everything is energy. For someone who's not spiritual, how we can understand that is the case there's a few quotes. There is this quote by Max Planck, who was a physicist and basically one of the grandfathers of quantum theory. And Max Planck specifically says in his book, The New Science, there is no such thing as matter. He says it in a kind of backwards way using the language of the time, but he realized that there must be this conscious or intelligent spirit that is creating everything that's happening. And this is one of the fathers of quantum physics. And it's also important to remember that Einstein literally created the formula E = mc squared. His most famous, renowned formula is the formula for mass energy equivalence. So really, everything is energy. So what does that mean for us as someone experiencing this reality? Well, energy as we measure it is in terms of vibration and frequency, or vibrational frequency. And so when we measure something that someone does or something that someone's feeling in a certain moment using, they're like vibrational meters, I can't remember, frequency meters. Frequency meters show that when you're feeling joy, when you're feeling happiness or forgiveness, anything positive, it registers as a higher vibrational energy. When you're experiencing fear or pain, anguish, suffering, anything of that nature, it's low vibrational energy. It's scientific. And so when you start to view your reality with a certain paradigm, that is the energy that you're choosing to align with. And as we live our lives and we make these decisions out of the duality of love and fear, then we either raise our vibrational content within our being or we lower it. And for me personally, we could talk about it all day, but
you got these subjects is an all-day subject.
Right. But you really got to experience it. And I don't typically like bringing up this story, but it's quite profound, and it was one of the most empowering moments of my life, and my higher self typically guides me to bring it up. And what happened to me when I saw how powerful we truly are, I was in downtown Chicago after my awakening. I had hit the road. I was going to go on this sort of walkabout experience to find what was happening and to figure out who I really am. And as I was driving through Chicago, my cousin called me. She was worried because I was telling my mom and my sister at the time, oh, the government's been controlling us and all this stuff, connecting all the dots. At the time, I was kind of fearful. So that
the first level of awakening is the conspiracy.
Right, yeah.
And you're like that guy from the movie with the map and the pinpoints and,
Yeah, but it was so clear to me.
Absolutely.
With the eyes to see what was happening.
It's a valid point, actually.
Right. And so my mom was convinced that I was having some sort of mental breakdown, so she called the police for a wellness check. And then I was driving through downtown Chicago when suddenly I'm surrounded by literally a dozen police vehicles, including SWAT. They jump out of their vehicles, start screaming, talking about vectors of fire, telling me to get out of the car. If I don't get out of the car, they're going to open fire. And I just remember I put up my hands and I said, I have no idea what's going on. I've done nothing wrong. I'm just here to see a friend and maybe get some pizza and then hit the road. I don't know what this is about. And they kept screaming at me, trying to get this reaction out of me. And I remember telling them, I was in the military for almost 7 years. We wouldn't treat insurgents overseas this way. And this officer, he came up close to my driver's side door and said, "You better listen to me." And I said, "No, you listen to me." And every single officer simultaneously lowered their weapons and took a step backwards away from my car. And then that officer that I yelled to looked at me like, "Who the heck are you?" And then immediately everything shifted. They all holstered their weapons. They sent over a sergeant to talk to me one-on-one, and he was more of like a father figure type energy. And if I had not chosen courage and tenacity and whatever I had chosen in that moment that was positive, then I am pretty certain that I would not be here today. Because the way that they reacted was with force, with violence, with aggression. And to me, I can't possibly know what they were thinking, but it wasn't anything good.
Yeah. And
after that moment, I just knew that, okay, there's definitely truth to this. We do create our reality because nobody that I know would have ever done what I did.
Well, I see 2 points to your story if I want to point those out from a different perspective, which I think is pretty cool. And it is, you did manifest your reality. You said the government's against us. It's all bullshit.
Right.
And the very thing first, your own mother called the police on you. And so you you almost got shot.
Exactly.
I mean, you manifested literally that exact situation with your own intensity of feeling. Because when you first awaken, one of the first things is like this whole thing's fucked. And then it does produce a pretty bad feeling.
It's all those fears coming up to the surface.
Right. And the moment that you speak those things, that it causes the people who are, let's say, in the system still, bless their hearts in the best possible way, it causes fear in them, and then they're worried about you, and then you manifest the exact situation that you were worried about, which is like you would say something and something bad would happen.
Right.
But then at the very same time, you used your power to disarm a situation that was probably not that great. So both, in my mind, 2 clear examples of manifestation. One, a more unconscious manifestation, and 2, a very conscious manifestation.
Right.
I think we do that both ways. And so, just to interject my 2 cents here from what I got from my guidance, it's a great question. We manifest our own reality, but there's all this crap going on in the world that's horrible. And so nobody wakes up and wants to be, a bad person or go, clean up dog crap all day. You know, this is probably not what you wanted to manifest in your life, you know? And I just picked that random example here, but, you know, we all go through life and we're like, man, I didn't want this. I'm experiencing this, and it's very real.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that this is not my day right now. And so when I looked at it from like a higher point of view, I asked my guides, and I'm like, well, what do you mean? I mean, the world's pretty messed up, and I manifest this. And it felt like to me, from my point of view, like you have to zoom out a lot to get to the point where you see that we manifest everything. Because when you say that, I think a lot of those concepts are coming from a very high level. From a very, very high level, you're infinite, you're immortal, you're God. You're never going to go away. You're never going to die, and you want everything. You want to try everything. You want to try the good, the bad, the ugly, the amazing, the godlike. And it's all part of this experience to drive you towards becoming more of who you really are, to know yourself at this really deep level. So, you know, in that thing, it does make sense that you would have one lifetime as a peasant, and one time as a king, and one time as a janitor, and one time as a taxi driver, and one time as an astronaut. You know, you want to try all those things and all the different life experiences, and you would co-create that experience with your fellow Miras and your friends and these other selves to have that experience, even if sometimes if it's brutal, because at this high level, it's all good. It's just a game. It's just a show. It's just a way to keep us entertained from probably the fact that we're all alone up there. So I saw it sort of like that. And then in the practical, I agree with both of you that, especially now, it feels like the energy is so high, the manifestation is very fast.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You know, it's like if I want something, it just shows up. Like today I was like, you know, I should really do something for Awaken. And then here we are 2 hours later, we're having a live, and maybe we'll cut this up and use it later.
Yeah, nobody knew we were going to be here right now.
No.
It just happened.
Well, here's the question. Was it my desire? Was it your desire? Was it God's desire? Was there a guy's desire?
Right.
It was a desire, was it not?
Yeah, well, and you know, piggybacking off of that and the Max Planck statement that there is no matter. The angels have always said, you know, for example, if you want to look in the microscope and study something, you're going to see what you're going to project to see, because that's not truly there. So in that sense, and how that sort of manifests in a tangible way, is that I've noticed that when we, any one of us, say we go to the doctor and discover that we have something, and we talk so much about this test and this result means this, and this medicine is going to do this to me, or whatever, we make that situation more and more real, and we get to experience more of it. Whereas if we say, nah, I'm going to pass on this one, and visualize ourselves and not give any energy to it, it seems like we just skate right over it, right? And so there's a little bit of that. And it's interesting because I had this sort of message that came in from the angels that came in, and the context for which is that in the middle of downtown LA, there is these freeways that were designed, I don't know, before the dinosaurs, and everyone has to merge between the 110, the 10, and the 101, and all these freeways. Everyone's trying to get over here and get over here in like this little place. And as I was going through there and watching the aggression, you know, ensue in that area to get on the 101, I heard something that said, the angel said, the ascension or the awakening needs the chaos as much as the chaos needs the awakening, because the chaos is the catalyst for it. And they said, you know, if in order to actually get to this heaven on earth reality, you want to create in the microscope, so to speak, or on TV, this near miss to a totalitarian reality, if that's what's going to actually get you to wake up, you'll see what you want to see.
That's a great one. I think that leads us to the next one. The next one.
Well, if you don't mind, Adrian, you actually mentioned something just in that talk that's one of the talking points, that you are God. Do you think we could talk about that for a second?
Oh, I would love that. It's like the most fun one.
So what's your take on that, Adrian?
So from my experience, you are God. And that was like the most profound thing that I've ever even thought of, actually. And my awakening, it took me a few years to figure it out, to be honest. Even though it was sort of came in pretty quickly, I just couldn't wrap my head around that. I had to experience it in some ways. And so from what I was guided, from what I was shown, from what I experienced, is that essentially that there is one Godhead, there is one person or idea or thought or the central figure, let's call it, and it's you. And you split down into all of these forms, creating universes, creating the whole thing, all of the creation, right? And all the manifest creation. And it's a way to experience yourself. And when you meditate, when you quiet your mind, you can go up sort of towards your higher self and even higher and higher until basically you get to this state of oneness where you realize and remember like that you're everything. And it's just the most profound moment I think you can have. And I think that's, you can hear it. It can be on YouTube. You can, read about it. You can listen to all the biblical people and the great, Buddhas and all those people that have come before trying to tell us something similar. It really does feel like an experience. And once you have that, then it sort of clicks. And I think that's where a lot of these spiritual teachings came from. You're one with the Father. You're one. It's all inside of you. I mean, it was hard to understand that until you sort of see it. And you're like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right.
It's one of those realizations that drops in. And the weird part is
hard too.
Yeah, and once it actually drops in, and you think you've discovered this like great big secret, and then all of a sudden you start encountering other people who are in on it.
That's what
it's not such a big secret after all.
Yeah,
Everybody else is aware of this
I
too.
remember too. It was like the moment really, really sank in. It took me a few years.
Like if everybody knew this.
It hit me and I was like, dude, this is the biggest joke in the universe, man. Like, are you effing kidding me? Like, I was like, how do we not even know this right now? It's like, I say in the business world, and I come from the business world, you wouldn't know a good deal if it sat on your face, man. And here we are with the truth is like literally in front of us at all times. Like this whole thing is so crazy that, and it feels so real that we are lost in the separation of it because it makes it so awesome. It's not a bad thing. I think it's actually awesome to be separated and in this physical world, and everything is like scary and crazy, and like we think we're gonna die, and we think all this stuff's going to happen. And in a sense, yes, but barely, but it feels like it's like ultimate truth. But then when you experience full on unity and you experience this, the realization that you are God, then that just flips the script on everything. What's good? What's bad? Why are we here? What's the point? Why doesn't nobody know this? Like, has it been kept from us? Is it MK Ultra? Is it a freaking scam? Like,
well, I don't know. They kind of released the documents exposing it to the world that it is. But anyway.
Right. And is it because of what? We're scared of knowing that? Because deep down, it is scary.
Recently, I had an experience where I asked the angels, what can I do to help the world right now? What can I do to help this world? Like, obviously, I know that I'm speaking to you and communicating with you to be of service. How can I be of service? So I went into a meditation to gain the answer, and all of a sudden I became aware, like all that appears to be the opposition completely vanished. And the message came through, there is no opponent. There is no opposition. You create that in the simulation kind of a thing. So they took me into this, astral traveled into this level of such deep awareness where all of a sudden, all that stuff that appears to be the opponent was gone. And they're like, the opponent doesn't even exist. Right. It appears to exist here. So that doesn't minimize, and I can
hear... It doesn't minimize suffering because
there's
tremendous suffering in the world.
I can hear all the people saying, what about this? What about the child trafficking and everything? And I totally get that. It's something that is in this illusion. But at the highest level... I've had a dream when I was a kid where I woke up and I realized I'm God and none of those other people existed, neither did I.
Yeah.
And at that level, that's where there's no opposition. It's only in here in this simulation.
And we created this for a good reason.
Every aspect of it.
Every single thing gives us this richness to life, the whole creation. And it's not just Earth. There's life everywhere. And we are that life, and I think that's the big factor between you call the light and the dark. Two perspectives to know the self, in my opinion. And that's sort of what I sort of saw. You know, there's perspective to know the self through darkness, through pain, through suffering, through separation, because it gives everything such a deep contrast. And it gives everything a really powerful feeling, actually. And then there's this way to know ourselves through unity consciousness, through we're all one. And of course we love each other. Why wouldn't we love ourselves? Because once the stories of, this is all about self-love at the end of the day. This is the whole human experience. In my personal opinion, I don't even think creation would exist if we actually loved ourselves truly. It would be to show us what that even means. Like, that's the whole fun part, is to answer the question of, who am I? Do I love myself? What is this?
Right.
So we create this game, a very, very intricate, big one, to find that out for ourselves,
Yeah. And you both dropped some interesting points there to address the idea of something not existing, even though, many people, even viewers of this video, might say, well, I see that, there's murderers out there, there's opposition, it exists. But at the end of the day, as Alan Watts put it, we would not know what existence is unless we knew also at some level that we didn't exist. Because we can't know what black is unless we know what white is. We need that contrast, as you just mentioned, from the fear, the separation, to experience what the love is. And yeah, that's just that's one logical way of looking at it, and how we are God from someone, because I'm someone that has done much meditation, but hasn't gotten a lot back from it. For me, there are certain energetic blocks holding that back, and I'm not worried about it. I'm not afraid of it. But from my perspective, I'm satisfied with my knowing that we are God, we are the universe, because you can think about it in a very simple way. Through our 5 physical senses that we experience in our so-called physical body, everything outside of us, technically outside of our brain, outside of our mind, is inside of our mind. So therefore, anything outside of me, the sun, the stars, the entire planet, it all exists within my mind, within my perception. Therefore, if all of that exists within me, then I must be everything that exists. And so that's one logical way of looking at it.
Do you know, I just heard something drop in, which is interesting, because this particular talking point came from an article that we all read, where the idea is that the infiltration of, like, let's say the CIA in the New Age movement would perpetrate this misinformation to convince us that we're God, because it's and the article said that that's Luciferian thinking, right? And what's interesting is that Luciferian thinking, in its sense of, I've never experienced that, maybe, but the understanding of it is that separateness, is that I'm the elite and you're the serf. So Luciferian thinking isn't unity consciousness. It's a heightened level of separation consciousness.
Right. God is outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And if you think that you're God, you're a blasphemous, devil worshiper, obviously. I mean, come on.
And if you have a
story, is it true?
If you have a ritual on the moon and the whatever, and
it's
all
the
that.
same as Rome. If you looked at the stars, the reality is, like, from what I see, because there's so much fear in religion and the teachings, especially if you cross this subject that you're God, for example. I mean, that's just the worst, in my opinion. I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to do that in a lot of places.
Even though Jesus says it in the Bible.
Even though he
only he can do it.
Yeah. But only he's one with the Father.
Okay.
Even though he said you are too, that you're one with me.
Right. And that's, I think, the biggest the biggest thing here is, like, when you cross that bridge, when you realize it, then I think Jesus' teachings make a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Right? Suddenly it's like, you'll do everything that I'll do and more, because of course you will.
Right.
Suddenly it's all inside of you, because of course it is. Suddenly you're one with the Father, you're one with everything, because of course you are.
Right.
Love your neighbor like yourself, because they are yourself. Of course they are.
I recently had a talk with...
suddenly it really lines up real good.
Right. I recently had a talk with a really amazing Christian woman who has her own perspective, and we don't agree on everything, but we had that conversation about what you just said. Jesus said that we would do greater things than him. Well, how could we possibly do greater things than him if he's supposed to be the only embodiment of God?
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. And how disempowering is it to believe that you are some lowly organism that must bow down to something that is far superior to you? It's like the ultimate form of psychological submission.
So I would say the first thing that MK Ultra did went all the way back to the Bible and was original sin.
Yeah.
So before MK Ultra,
Absolutely.
the idea that we're somehow not good enough is at the core, in my mind, of all human experience. It's what makes all this structure possible, is that idea. That's what makes manipulation possible at its core, is that you're not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
That something's wrong with you. And I think that is what really all these questions come from. It's where all the fear comes from. It's where all the thing that we're trying to wake up from. The big dream is that first story is like, no. Of course you're good enough. This is, you came here for a reason. This is you. This is your reality. There is no home. This is your home.
Mm-hmm.
You're exactly where you need to be.
And I think I think I heard this recently when I had a discussion with you, Isaac, is that you heard this echoed back, but a lot of what I and you, both of you as well, and definitely those that are listening to this, they're at a stage in this where they're listening to what's going on inside instead of actually taking the information from what's being fed them, regardless of the source.
Right.
And when you receive information, it checks in. Right. Does it check in as authentic because of how you feel? Does it check in as inauthentic based on how you feel, right? So if you're taking in information and all of a sudden you feel your body or your higher self rejecting it or repelling it, then you know that there's not authenticity to the information. But if it hits you and you're like, yeah, that's true. I totally get that because I know that from within. We're moving into a space where even as conscious luminaries to assist other people, our job is actually to plug them into themselves and not feed them information.
Right.
And that's the more quantum level of serving other people at this time in this conscious evolution stage, is that we're not actually the source of information for them. We're actually just, put on your air mask or, your oxygen mask and then help the person that's sitting next to you put on theirs and connect with their higher self.
That's a beautiful way of saying it. And, with Awaken and what we're doing, that is that. It's like, I think there's a Ram Dass quote, and I might be butchering his name here, but we're all just walking each other home.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
And that hits. Like whenever I hear that statement, that hits, and I'm like, yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Even the bad guys.
It's all us. It's all for us.
Yeah, even the bad guys, so to speak. Yeah, they're doing the same thing.
And a lot of the issues that are being spread as disinformation is coming from a place of, love is just going to convince you to be passive, right? And what this is, it's not about pacifism or submission. This is about empowerment. We are systematically disempowered from the moment that we're born. Oh, you can't go near the hot stove. I'm going to spank you.
And I was talking to this with a friend the other night. We talk about Jesus and he was crucified, and and I have a lot of religious friends, so I sort of grew up a little bit around that. And, it was all for our sins and all this. And there's a part of me that's like, no, dude, they crucified the guy because he was a rebel. I mean, this guy came in and he convinced all these people that they were like God. That he came into the money changers in the temples and threw them on the ground and said, this doesn't mean anything. He was sort of a badass, actually. Like, it wasn't like all peace and love, really.
Yeah.
In a sense, it was like, do you know who you are? This is your world. These are your temples. And it doesn't change today. The awakening is actually terrifying when you think about it. Because suddenly your neighbor, the guy down the street, the bus guy, the bus stop, they are as powerful as you are. Their ideas matter as much as yours do. They own that bank as much as you do. They own this world as much as you do, because this is the world. This is our world. So suddenly it's just like, are the banks bad? I don't know. They're your banks. Do you want them to be bad? You know, is the government bad? Well, it's your government. All those people that work in there are you. You know, are the, you know, the evil ones keeping us down bad? Well, they're just like crappier versions maybe of us. I don't know. They're us. It's would you even judge it?
Right. I wouldn't even say crappy. Exactly. I would just say it's a different perspective.
It's a different perspective. Now, if that perspective ever came into self-awareness of its own power, and it started to unify into a collective consciousness, then that whole game would change. Because then suddenly everyone's opinions would matter at a very intrinsic and deep level. And society would completely change overnight. Because you couldn't disempower the people. A lot of the problems that we have in society everywhere are from the idea of separation, that, hey, you know, you don't deserve that, so I'm going to take it. And, you know, and then we have robberies and we have all this crazy stuff.
Right.
When you start seeing everything as yourself, it's incredibly powerful. I think that is the reason, if there is any, and I believe that there is, force to try to keep people from awakening, it's because the awakening it's love, but it's also powerful. Because once somebody awakens, it's really hard to tell them what to do, because they're getting information from the self, just like you said.
Right.
They're getting it from God. They're getting it from the higher self, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago, I remember, and this is way before we have this, what you could call maybe a mass political awakening, where you realize that the banking system is privatized and all that kind of good stuff, whatever. But what's interesting is that the angels said to me 10 years ago that it's consciousness that will make this obsolete, because it is a lack of consciousness that keeps those structures in place, and that it is consciousness that does this, which kind of brings us to, or doesn't bring us to, but some of the other articles talk about kind of that savior thing, where other species or Donald Trump or whoever is going to like swoop in and save us and
do our work for us.
Jasara, Nasara, or whatever. And I've never really, I've heard it, and I'm like, well, maybe that's one of the ways that the divine in us has sort of created a solution, but maybe it's not either. So, but I don't believe in sort of like sit and letting the Galactic Council or whatever come in and do its work or whatever, because it's the consciousness. By raising the consciousness, we start to raise the consciousness of all the other people. And what happens is, since they're us, we eventually get to a level where we say, yeah, we're not participating in that anymore. We're going to redefine it. We're gonna somehow or another create something new. And the way that it was revealed to us how we're going to create it better, because we know where its limitations are. And you know, at the beginning of, I'm just going to use the word March 2020, the angels told me, do not use the word the media is giving this, which is the word that rhymes with mandemic, that starts with a P. They said, don't say that word. They said, call this an ascension portal, because a lot of people are going to wake up consciously as a result of this event. And what's happened?
Here we are.
Here we are, yeah.
Right. And one thing that I wanted to touch on from your earlier speaking point is how and why it's important to be conscious, to be aware of what we're doing and what we're capable of. It comes from the idea of vibration having different levels of magnitude. So a higher vibrational thing has more power than something lower vibrational, just as I explained in that story.
There's more energy.
Yeah, I had 10 to a dozen police officers around me, all trying to co-create something out of fear. And one person, me alone, chose love and out-created the rest, and completely transform the situation into a more safe, better situation.
Better outcome.
Right. And so it's important to know that even if, the guy at Wendy's or the girl at, church has the same level of creative input into this reality that we're experiencing, it's important to know that we have the same creative input, but not the same creative power. Because that power is tied to the high vibrational energies within us, the love within us.
Yeah, and so that brings me to some things that I saw, in the spiritual realms. Like, let's talk about ETs, for example, because that's a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
So there, in my humble opinion, I've had the experience where I've been face to face with ETs. Mm. And to me, they very much exist. And as shocking as it was, I had to accept that fact. And they had beautiful technology. They're very nice, the ones that I experienced. And, you know, when I sort of start to understand, like, how did they build these things? It was very clear to me it's because their society was very different. Mm-hmm. And so they had transcended this level of consciousness to a higher one. They lived a lot longer. They didn't, I sort of say, you know, we have a desperation economy on mm-hmm. Earth. It's like, oof, we just got to make enough money to get by for the week and, you know, mm-hmm. pay our bills and feed the family and all this stuff. And then their production, the amount of lifespan that you have.
Pay the bank back their fake money.
But, you know, you don't, maybe you only have 30, 40 productive years. Mm-hmm. And some Palladian is like out of love for the Palladian society with 1,000 Palladians for 1,000 years is conceptualizing a beautiful spacecraft so they can spread love around the universe. And it's just a totally different work ethic.
Right.
You know, and they got a long time to do it. And I mean, they're going to build a really cool ass spaceship. You know what I mean? And here, you know, if we can get a couple of Chevys and Fords out the door, and maybe if we're getting real cool, we'll get a Tesla. You know, it takes so much energy to do that mm-hmm. Because of the fact that we have to pay people, because of the fact that those people have so many other obligations to do besides working. Right. And it's just a very inefficient system. It's a heat death, let's call it. Mm-hmm. You know, where some of these higher societies, not only are they in higher energy and a higher consciousness and intelligence, they have more time, and they do things out of alignment. Hey, we all want this because wouldn't it be cool mm-hmm. to like travel through space? You know, like not because if we don't do this, we can't go home and feed our children. Right. It's a very different society. And so what I saw is, and what's so powerful about this awakening, and I don't think this is a 3-year thing, a 5-year thing, a 10-year thing, and everyone's flying around spaceships. I know I've heard that before, but it's not what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. But it is a very cool, very fast evolution towards something like that, mm-hmm. where the human condition, experience, and how we contribute to society is very, very different. Mm-hmm. It's more in alignment of, hey, I think the world needs this. Mm-hmm. And I think we're getting closer to that now.
I've got downloads that say that those of us, regardless of our chronological age, mm-hmm. that if we want to be here for that and be here as long as it's going to take to get that, you know, that we're not going to be a walking skeleton, that there's, you know, that there's actually a technology within us to revitalize our bodies and to keep us here if we've signed up to be here to make it all the way to that finish line.
Well, so, you know, there's this many stories in ancient India that there's, you know, people like Babaji and stuff that are still here. Mm-hmm. They never die. They were always here. And from my perspective, from what I see, I think that's the case anyways, whether we shed this body or not. Personally, I'd rather get another one every now and then, mm-hmm. Versus be stuck in this one, stuck in this life, stuck in this experience. I think we created these temporary experiences because we want to try a lot of fun things. Mm-hmm. Actually, you know, I don't see it as a negative.
And when John Cena is done with his body, then we'll just take that one.
Do what we gotta do, you know. Every now and then we need a 6-pack, right? You know, and so it's good to have another second chance, in my opinion.
Right. In terms of society,
you gotta laugh sometimes.
In terms of society, what you're explaining, I think it can be simplified into some very easy to digest ideas, and it's survival society versus creative society.
Absolutely.
And really, if you think about the old, I don't know if they're still making episodes, but the old TV show The Walking Dead, the zombie show, it's basically a metaphor for what we're doing. We're stressed constantly that we have to survive. Mm-hmm. You have got to survive. And you got to fight for the white because the black might win. Right. Even though black and white, you know, red and blue, it's all inseparable. It's all the same thing. It's like imagining that one side of the duality will somehow be beat out by the other indefinitely, forever. Right. And that just doesn't make any sort of sense. And because we have thoroughly convinced ourselves that this is the truth, this is the world, the reality that we've created.
We create that experience. Mm-hmm. So I think we just crossed the 1 hour mark. So let's wrap it up here.
Okay.
And I like this topic of, you know, ending this thing on duality, because right now the world is very much divided. There's a lot of strong opinions on this and that and other thing. And sometimes it's sort of lonely to be in the middle and have this conversation like, yeah, maybe. Does it matter? Like, I don't know. It's all happening. And you know, somebody will look at that and think, are you just sitting on the sidelines? Are you not creating? Are you not doing anything about this? Mm-hmm. Are you not taking a stand? And when I experienced the awakening, and I said, well, what am I supposed to do about this? What's my mission? How am I going to make this place better, right? Mm-hmm. And the answer that I got was be the love, but take what you learned and show other people, show them. Mm-hmm. You know, be an example. You don't have to teach anybody. You don't have to convince them. But you can take what you learn, you put out there for people to consume, and that would be a good first step. Mm-hmm. And here we are. We're on Awaken, where we got this little mini TV show we just put together here today to help other people say, hey, what can I do? And maybe it's not that. Maybe it's to play the violin and just do a great job at it because it brings people happiness. It doesn't really matter per se. It is about, in my opinion only, it's about sort of bringing that love through into form and to make it more visible for people. And, you know, what's your thoughts on that? Because there is this, like, you have to pick sides and all this stuff. Yes or no, I think that's debatable. Mm-hmm. But if there is an ascendant world that is moving into more love, unity, compassion, you probably want to align with that. It's better to ride the wave than sort of go against it. And I say that sometimes to friends, that we can see this energy already in the world. It's already flipped. You see sort of Tyson Foods going down, and you see Beyond Meat going up, because it's sort of compassionate more. Mm-hmm. You know, you see some things that are pretty destructive going down, and then you see the opposites going up. You might see like Ford going down and Tesla going up. Mm-hmm. Because the vision's bigger, the idea is bigger. It holds a lot of energy. Whether or not, you know, they've done good and their financials and this and that, the story sells, man. Right. The story is like, wow, I want a better world. So you see that energy winning in very practical ways. Mm-hmm. You know, so when we go into our lives, we want to do something practical. Mm-hmm. You know, what's your thought on that?
I think that it comes down to what reality do I want to experience, and what would that experience be? Because at the end of the day, it's all a state of being. Yes. And some have said that, you know, when you awaken, you stop doing and you go into being. But I would actually argue against that. I would say that we're always being. That's our natural state. But when we are being in the sense of living that fearful reality, it's because of the lack of information, the lack of awareness, of consciousness that is creating that situation. And so it can't possibly be some sort of psyop to embody unconditional love, because if I think about unconditional love,
that's a great psyop. We should do it.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're infiltrating us, we should infiltrate them. That's what I think.
That gets back into, you know, us or them mentality. Right. And I think that once your awareness gets to a certain point, you realize there really, like you said, there is no opposition. When you're on the side of unconditional love, you're on everybody's side.
Right. You want the person who's maybe being a little destructive to wake up. I mean, don't hurt yourself, because that's all you're doing.
And think about it this way. Fauci and Biden, they are some of the best helpers for the awakening. Right. As your story about the chaos needs the ascension, the ascension needs the chaos. It's this upward exponential curve that the more that those in power try to control, the more that the people awaken. The more that the people awaken, the more they try to control. And it just keeps going up until it's a vertical line, and we're on that in that moment where
that's what I saw too. You know, the crazier it gets, the crazier it gets.
Yeah, and I think when you said picking a side, I think we're moving into I'm experiencing us moving into a more multidimensional awareness, a more multidimensional beingness. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, picking a side is actually sort of defying the paradigm that we're going into, because we're going into something that's way more expansive and a lot less linear. Mm-hmm. And so as we get into, say, that, you know, that linear aspect and try to, we discover this multidimensional and very powerful aspect of our true essence inside, and then try to contain it into something that's linear, then we start to lose a little bit of momentum as well. Right. And I think we're all helping each other in that sense,
We're all walking each other home.
whether we realize it or not, you know?
Right. Well, that's awesome. And, I thank both of you guys for your time. I'm happy to be part of this as well. It's been fun to just, go over some of these ideas. And we had a lot of them, but we had just time for a few. But I really like the idea. I feel it's very hopeful to think that, things are getting better. Objectively speaking, this is the best time in human history that we have recorded. We have less war than we've ever had. We have really, in many ways, less death. And there may be more death happening right now. It's something we could say for another video. Tense at this moment. They are causing us to go within. They're causing us to look and maybe say, hey, I picked this side for a while, and then I flipped and I picked that side for a while. And I don't think there's a side. And you know what? Nothing's really making sense. Maybe I should just ask myself how I feel about this.
Right.
Because that is true empowerment in my mind. The moment where you actually trust yourself, imagine you're the only one with the truth of a certain thing. And that was your whole job, was to actually bring that to earth. It'd be really tough to bring that into the world when everyone didn't agree with you. And I think that's courage. I think that's leadership in so many ways. And I think what we're seeing on earth is, almost this darkness fading away. We call it this ignorance fading away. It's almost death by 1,000 paper cuts. There's just these people who will stand up in their singular truth on XYZ topic, and they're shattering the paradigm. They're running the 4-minute mile or whatever, and they're just like in their space blowing everyone's mind. And that's part of this awakening too, which I think is pretty cool. We're all doing our part.
And this just dropped in. So the events that we're seeing on the world stage are very triggering. And so in our personal experience, when we experience a triggering event, we're able to actually do something with it and expand more as a result of it.
Oh, yeah.
And what just dropped in was this sort of sense that the highest level of us realized that we're ready to ascend because all of the events that we're experiencing are triggering us into ascension. And that would never have happened until we were actually ready to do it, ready to actually do something with it. And I could see that as a kind of interesting thing, because even reading some of these articles can be very triggering for us, but also so can observing what's going on in the world stage can be very triggering for us as well, and causes us to go deeper into that fear where we discover something and come back out. But the highest level of the architect of this experience sent all these triggers in because it sort of said, okay, you're ready to come back home.
You get exactly what you need, maybe not what you want, because those are two different ways of looking at it.
Well, definitely not what we want.
And I want to just say as an ending note that the idea that you just mentioned, that it's not going to happen until we're actually ready, is a perfect example of why nobody's going to come here to do our shadow work for us. We need to do it as the collective on the planet, as the apex predator that we are allegedly are. Probably not the best wording for this type of energy, but what I'm saying is that nobody's going to do this work for us. That's why it's taken thousands upon thousands of years to get to this point. But now we're starting to see, the three of us sitting here. We're awesome. Yeah. We're powerful. We are love, and we are making a difference every single moment of every day. And I'm just so excited for this.
And that goes for everybody watching, and then to have their own conclusions. And even if they spend only 5 minutes after this video thinking about it, that's great.
Right.
It goes through their structure. It influences their lives in a way, and then they go on to influence other people's lives in a way. And I sort of look at the work that we're all doing, and sometimes it seems like maybe you just move an inch. But if you were to move a tanker an inch, in 6 weeks it would be 1,000 miles away or whatever.
Right.
It's a big change with a little bit of time. So if everyone's moving an inch, where are we going?
Right.
And that's a really powerful thought. So I'll leave us on that. I want to thank everybody for watching. Blessings to everybody, and I want the best.
Yeah, thank you all. And if anybody has any questions about what we've talked about or things that we didn't talk about, feel free to reach out. And I personally have a website, thecrimsoneagle.com, THE, crimsoneagle.com, and I don't charge for any services. I'm just here to help others and offer them adaptive ways of thinking to get through this mega transition that we're all a part of.
Perfect.